Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger, and up next, we're going to be continuing our conversation about who is the beast of the AFC North. Do me a quick favor, hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can get updates when we upload new content. Let's go. So, in last video, when we was having this conversation, part of our 32 for 32 series, we we saw good representation in all of the major offensive categories: passing, rushing, and receiving. Every team in the AFC North Division was represented, and so which says most of these teams have good representation coming into the 2023 season in order to build on, have a good foundation. That's a better word, a good foundation to build on coming into next season, and so I think that that makes the AFC North super, super competitive. And I think that one could say that offensively, there's going to be a really good balance across the board. So I think one of the big difference makers is going to be which team performs well defensively to offset those offenses. And so let's take a look at who's coming in from last year to be foundational in what the Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Browns seek to do in the 2023 season. So let's get started with tackles. So when we look at the 2023 tackle leaders for each club, you got Luke Wilson up first from the Cincinnati Bengals, and I included the name of the teams for each player simply because unlike offense, defensive players sometimes get lost and don't get a lot of name recognition. And so I got Luke Wilson, number one. He had 123 tackles for the Cincinnati Bengals. I got Patrick Queen coming in at number two with 117 tackles for the Baltimore Ravens. I got Grant Delpit, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, with 105 tackles coming in for the Cleveland Browns. And then bringing up the rear is Myles Jack, linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, with 104 tackles. When you look at these numbers and these players, you have to ask the question, is this their peak? Will there be a decline, or could they exceed? And so for Luke Wilson is a really nice linebacker. Shows some coverage skills and shows some downhill ability. He cleans up a lot of plays. He's always around the ball. But I think 123 is probably his peak. He could tip over that for some other reasons that I'll explain when we get to another slide, but I certainly think he could be back at that 123 mark, if not tiptoe over it a little bit. Patrick Queen for the Baltimore Ravens, we understand that his number may come down some in 2023, not because he's going to be less productive, but simply because last year he played the first half of the season without Roquan Smith, and so he has some of his numbers already established, and so I think playing beside Roquan Smith may bring those numbers down more to probably a 100 to 105 range versus that peak at 117. So I think he may have a little bit of drop off, but not because of a decline in play, just because of the talent around him is going to get better. Grant Delpit, I'm not sure if he's a linebacker or a safety. I wanted to say he was a safety, but I'm not sure at this point. But he had 105. I don't have any reason to say his numbers drops off, so I think he comes back in this year and peaks at 105 tackles again. And then Myles Jack, linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think he comes back in again with a solid around 100, 104 tackles. So I think all these guys are on par. These guys had no injury concerns, and so I think they're all on par to kind of reach a very similar statistic level in tackles once again in 2023. All right, let's go down here to sacks, another major defensive category, and there is no other than Myles Garrett, who leads the AFC division for the Cleveland Browns with 16 sacks. He's a guy who's terrorized the AFC North from the time he really came into the league. Has speed, power, and burst off the edge, and can certainly finish when he gets to the quarterback. Alex Highsmith is a guy that I did not know who he was until this season. Saw him flash a couple of times, and he ended up leading the Pittsburgh Steelers with 14 sacks. This may be due to TJ Watt having some injury issues this past season, but yet and still, Alex Highsmith showed what he could do. I don't think he gets back to 14 sacks simply because if TJ Watt is a full-time player because he's healthy, I think his numbers drops off a little bit. Maybe he comes in still with double digits, 10 to 12, but I don't think he reaches 14 again in the 2023 season. But still, those are good numbers. Justin Houston, 9.5, led the Baltimore Ravens. He's a guy that's unsigned right now, and I'm not even sure if he's going to play in 2023 just yet. But as of right now, those 9.5 sacks come off of the Baltimore Ravens registrar, so to speak. And somebody else has to pick up that slack for those 9.5 sacks, unless Justin Houston returns. But even if he returns, I do not see him going to get 9.5 sacks again. So that still leaves some of the younger players to kind of fill in that gap, which is a concern right now for the Baltimore Ravens. And then Sam Hubbard, I think 8.5 is about right for Sam Hubbard. He may tip over into 9.5. He may even touch 10. I don't think he gets much higher than that. He's a really good player, and we know him very well in Baltimore. He's known for that infamous play where he takes the sack fumble recovery, 99 yards for a touchdown, and basically ends the Baltimore Ravens season. And so I think 8 is about right for him. Excuse me, 8.5 is about right for Sam Hubbard. And so as you see, all these teams have good representation, both for tackles and sacks. But of course, there is a drop off if Justin Houston does not return for the Baltimore Ravens. So there is some sort of a decline right there for us. Let's go down to another major defensive category, and that is interceptions. And so you have Nika Fitzpatrick with 6 interceptions. You have Grant Delpit with 4 interceptions for the Cleveland Browns. And with those 4 interceptions, that leads me to believe he was more of a safety than a linebacker. If anybody knows which position he plays, by all means put that into the comment section. But he had 4 interceptions for the Cleveland Browns. You have Marcus Williams for the Baltimore Ravens. And then you have Vonn Bell and Jessie Bates tied for the Cincinnati Bengals with 4 interceptions. And so when you go back, you take a look at all these guys. Nika Fitzpatrick, I think he certainly has the potential to get to 6, if not break that 6 interception mark, just based on some of the things the the Pittsburgh Steelers did around that defense. So I certainly think with his ability, he's certainly a ball hawk, certainly has elite range. And so I think he could maybe even exceed 6 interceptions in 2023. When you drop down to Grant Delpit, I have no reason to think he won't get back to 4. Again, I don't know much about him, so I won't speak that much about him. But he shows up in tackles and on interceptions as the leader. So sounds like he's a pretty solid guy, right? Marcus Williams is a guy who got up to a hot start in Baltimore, had 3 picks, I think, in the first 3 or 4 weeks, got injured sometime later, and I think he ended up with a late interception. But he is also a ball hawk, a guy who can track the ball, a guy you don't want to play around with because he will pick the ball off. And so I think Marcus Williams, if he plays a full season, certainly could exceed that 4 interception mark. So I think 4 interceptions is not his peak. I certainly think with playing a full season, he gets over that 4 interception mark. And then Vonn Bell and Jessie Bates for the Cincinnati Bengals, they're both gone. Vonn Bell signed a free agent deal in Carolina, and Jessie Bates, I think, ended up in Atlanta. And so that's 8 interceptions. They had 4 apiece that will be taken off the board for the Cincinnati Bengals, which could be a huge step back for that middle of the field defense. And so when we when we think about all these numbers and all these big time players, I think that with Jesse, if we look at some teams that lost foundational pieces to their defense, you start with the Cincinnati Bengals losing both their safeties, Bell and Bates, which puts extra pressure on a guy like Luke Wilson, who showed up as the leading tackler. That's why I was saying earlier that he may exceed that 123 because he's going to have to do more to fill in for some of that loss that they will feel from the loss of both their safeties. And then I think if Justin Houston does not return for the Baltimore Ravens, that's a foundational piece. Even though he was a veteran, he's a foundational piece who kind of carried the edge rushing position last year with 9.5 sacks. So somebody else has to come up with those sacks, whether that's Odafe, whether that's Ajabo or whoever. And so I think that certainly is a concern for the Baltimore Ravens. And so again, two teams in the AFC North lost foundational pieces for their defense, who were big time performers in 2022. And so that's a team that's going to have some vulnerabilities because I don't remember the Cincinnati Bengals adding a big time piece to replace those guys. I think they did add someone. I can't remember his name right now, but we'll deal with that when we talk about position groups. But let me know what you guys want me to know, man. It looks like every team has a good foundation. A lot of teams in the AFC division, AFC North specifically, are returning their playmakers from last year, sack leaders, interception leaders, tackling leaders, and so I certainly think that with those offensive numbers, hold on, excuse me, with those offensive numbers and defensive numbers, and those guys returning, man, the AFC North is going to be super competitive. It may be what pundits thought the AFC West was going to be last year, that hyper competitive division. When Russell Wilson signed with Denver or was traded to Denver, they thought that was going to be the toughest division in the AFC West because also Devontae Adams joined the LA Raiders. Excuse me, no, Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, that's what it is now. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I think that this has the potential with the offense and the defense combined. This has the potential to shake out to be a very difficult, a very difficult division, super competitive, and I think it's going to be a war of attrition. That's going to shake out to be whoever the division winner will be. So listen, let me know what you want me to know, man. Up next, we will begin to do our rating system for the position groups. And so I'm super excited about that. So just stay tuned, man. I'm your guy, Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.